Great to have your company on a Monday morning. This is Paul Henry. A notorious Mexican drug lord, we've been talking about him all morning, has escaped prison for the second time. This time tunneling out of what is supposedly Mexico's most secure jail and leaving authorities red-faced. US correspondent Sandy Hughes joins me from Los Angeles. Sandy, so good to have you on. This billionaire drug kingpin got out of a hole 20 inches by 20 inches.
Yes, El Chapo. You know, that means in English the short one. He certainly is not short in stature when it comes to his position in the Sinaloa cartel. You know, that is it's one of the biggest cartels, if not the biggest in Mexico, dealing with drugs. They are said to control all of the points of entry from Mexico into the U.S. For drugs. And like you said, this is the second time he's escaped from prison. This time he went through the bottom of his shower stall, which was in his cell, into this ventilated tunnel that then went... Exactly. But here's my question. What's he doing with the shower in his cell? I mean, you know, he shouldn't have a shower in his cell.
Sandy's worth $1 billion. You can have anything in your cell at all.
Exactly. It's probably got granite countertops, too. So anyway, the point being, he goes out this tunnel, which goes into an abandoned house, and out he goes, which is just, you know, very embarrassing for the Mexicans, because the United States, the second time he was arrested, just this past time, they really pushed to have him incarcerated here in the U.S., because obviously he's facing lots of charges here, and the Mexicans said, no way, we'll keep him, and we'll keep him in prison, and they didn't.
All right. I mean, I suspect he will be caught again, but how do we know? You know, he's got enough money to hide, if he tries to hide.
He certainly does.
Okay,
yeah.
let's talk about Trump, because the extraordinary thing is, I mean, we thought that he was going to be a minor, side issue to this whole presidential campaign, but it's turning out he could actually be a serious contender. Is that right?
Well, can you believe it? The poll numbers, the latest polling numbers, after all this hubbub with his statements about Mexican illegal immigrants, his poll numbers have actually gone up, which is very surprising. You know, he spent a few days on the western part of the United States over this past weekend. He was in L.A., he was in Las Vegas, and he was in Arizona, and he did not shy away at all from the statements that he made a couple weeks ago about illegal immigrants, calling many of them rapists and murderers. He was saying here in Los Angeles, where there was a huge protest outside of the hotel where he was speaking, that Mexican officials know they're sending the people that they don't want to have in Mexico. They know they're sending criminals across the border. So he's just, he's not backing down from these very inflammatory comments, and it's quite surprising that his polling numbers are creeping up.
Okay, and he says, just very quickly, Sandy, on Trump still, he says that he thinks he'll win the Hispanic vote. Now, over the weekend, as we've been saying, he was in LA. There is a very high Hispanic population there. I mean, is there an indication that he could well win the Hispanic vote?
Well, look, he's known for saying, quite outrageous things. And, there are no really polls to indicate that that might be true. You know what's really interesting, too, is while he's harping on all this issue of Mexican illegal immigration, actually, the number of immigrants that we're getting from Mexico has dropped. In fact, in 2013, the Chinese surpassed that. So we're getting more immigrants from China all the time, legal and illegal.
Trump will have to reword
anyone's guess is what he'll say
about the Chinese.
Anyone's guess what'll happen. What'll come out of his mouth next? Who knows? Right. Who will he offend next?
Well,
I guess is the question.
We've got you watching this space for us, Sandy. All right. Why does someone come up with $1 million reward for ruby slippers stolen 10 years ago?
Well, it's very interesting. Next month, August, will be the 10-year anniversary of when these ruby slippers that Judy Garland wore in The Wizard of Oz were stolen from her hometown museum, which is in Minnesota. That's where she was born. Interestingly enough, there are two other pairs of these. One is in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. Another pair has been set aside for a motion picture museum that's going to be built here in Los Angeles. So it's quite interesting. It's an anonymous donor from Arizona. He's put up the $1 million, but he says he wants the shoes and he wants the name of the thief. So whether that's going to happen, I don't know. And the interesting thing is, where the heck are these shoes? I mean, are they in some rich guy's living room on display?
Yeah, because the problem is,
what would you do with them? How could you sell them?
Yeah, what would you do with them? Because they're supposedly worth about $2 to $3 million. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what they're saying now. If they're recovered, they would be worth that at auction.
Excellent,
That's
Sandy.
a lot of
Thank
money
you so
for
much.
some sparkly red shoes.
There's a lot of, well, they're ruby shoes.
Take care.
And from perhaps the best movie ever made in the history of time, Sandy Hughes, US correspondent. Thank you for joining us.